course, more of what is being looked at is the bilateral relations between Senegal and Uganda. And of course, as we move forward as Africa, as a continent, we do need these relations, especially when it comes to such strong ties within our security, but also how to grow our economies as Africa. We do hope that this is fruitful and indeed continues to put us in a very, very good relations with the country. We know that the president has been really passionate when it comes to growing the continent as Africa, and of course making sure that we can get on a global competitive nature when it comes to all the resources that we have in Africa. But also on a sad note, guys, we did lose the Archbishop of Mbara Diocese, that is the Emeritus Paul Bachenga. And we know that this is a very huge loss when it comes to the religious fraternity. We continue to pray with his family and pray that they are strong, and of course the entire fraternity, the entire country, while they are mourning the late Archbishop, and pray that may his soul rest in eternal peace. Now, a lot of things are happening across the country as well. I would want to know what is catching everyone's attention this morning. Robert, you seem to be, ever since this week started, you seem to be doing a lot of this journalistic work. What is tapping your concern?
Well, just as I thought the DNA thing was over, residents of Mpigi woke up to shock when an Israel national killed his wife. This guy is 58 years, and he killed a wife, one Monica Nabukenya, 25 years. Why? Well, they have 2 kids, and one of the children, who happens to be 7 months after carrying out a DNA test, he confirmed the child wasn't his. So he says back home in their country, cheating is forbidden and it's punishable by death. So he killed the wife, dumped him in a pit, and after some time residents found out that actually he had murdered his wife. And he confessed to it, saying, this lady cheated on me.
This is a very sick individual.
But still,
that is a very sick individual.
This issue of DNA, I don't know. I want to tell men, if you're not strong enough, do not risk to do DNA, because you know, you go for a DNA test when you're expecting 2 answers. These children could be mine, or they may not be mine. So do not be fooled to think that when you go to carry out a DNA test, the children automatically must be yours. They will or they may not. So go preparing yourself. Cancel, prepare your mind even before you do these DNA tests. But also, far from that, do you know the crested crane?
Oh yeah.
Which national
I'm guessing every Ugandan
do we have
probably.
the crested crane?
I'm guessing every Ugandan probably knows the crested crane, and very proud for it to be part of
which national symbols do we have
our
this
flag.
Very what?
You know, to have the crested crane on our flag, that is, it's a beautiful bird. Very sad what is happening.
Felix,
very sad.
He usually likes to open up. Which 2 national symbols do we have the crested crane?
I think the colors and the fact that it's standing on one leg, something like that.
No, we have it on the national emblem.
Okay, you didn't
ask your question. You meant
well.
Yes.
coat of arms and national flag.
No, I don't think. What was your question, Robert?
That was my question.
Kindly repeat your question.
What 2 national symbols do we have the crested crane?
No, the crested crane itself is a symbol. You might need to rephrase that or restructure that.
Okay, whatever.
Let's look at
let's look
Really,
at
you
now.
wouldn't have managed
The issue of
teaching.
concern here happens to be that 4 decades ago we had 100,000 crested cranes in population of this country. And as we speak today, we have only 1,000 left.
So are they edible?
Now, yesterday, residents of Rengo, some farmers poisoned
People have been eating them or what?
poisoned these crested cranes. And so far, those that have been found dead are over 15. The population is decreasing very fast.
Don't they give birth to others?
They do give birth, but I don't know. You know,
But according to the story I was actually following up, these are being poisoned.
These
it
birds
seems like
also,
intentionally someone is
extinction
trying
is
to
a big-
poison the crested cranes.
Yes.
And that is something that you need to be very cautious about.
Because
someone
if
is
you work
intentionally
upon the-
poisoning them.
and this national symbol is nowhere, then it will mean something very different.
It's really a beautiful bird and very rare to see. But the question I'm asking, like,
Don't they reproduce?
Absolutely.
The biggest
Like-
challenge why the population away from is these birds use wetlands.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, probably.
Wetlands. And that's where they lay their eggs, they do the hatching, they don't use trees. So people are encroaching on these wetlands, and the farmers in Rengo poisoned these birds because they were using the wetlands, and these birds were also taking part of the share. But finally, and most hurting, did you watch what happened in Kosase? When Uganda National Bureau of Standards officers appeared before this committee. Uganda wonders never cease to end. The head of Standards Council came out and said, you people, there's stinking corruption in this organization.
Now, me when I come here and say it on UBC,
And he
then
said-
people start to say this.
Let me just, this was an interesting bit of it.
Yeah.
He came up and said that those inspectors we have, very corrupt. And second, he brought out exemptions. He said government officials, he has boxes and boxes of letters where he's told to exempt people from inspecting their products. And he said, you here laughing about this, but one day your child is going to use toys that have not been inspected, and you're going to run into trouble. There is so much corruption. He said this corruption, UNBS
quite
in
an
a year
interesting one.
has capacity of collecting 100 billion, and they have already collected 60 billion because of corruption. Now, the executive director comes up and says this man is bad. He has been a spy in the organization ever since. Why didn't he give me that information? I'm just learning of it here. Very interesting.
Very interesting story that obviously I know it is sparking a lot of conversation all across. But Felix, Wednesday, what is catching your eye? What is piquing your interest? Matters concerning what is happening within the country. Don't say FDC saga.
Well,
Don't.
okay, I'll skip that for your matter. but nevertheless, there's a lot happening in Uganda. And quite interesting is the story that Robert did say about this Israel guy. And I'm thinking, like, a child of a white person is really, the DNA is prima facie. Like, it's on the face
The
of
guy already
the
had
products.
suspicions, first of
No,
all.
but
Because
even
7
if-
months, what are you doing checking this?
No,
baby?
but even if like a child from sort of like, because Nabukenya is a
Nabukenya
Ugandan.
Monica.
Nabukenya is a Ugandan name, and whatever name, like at the face of it, you would see and know. At even point of birth, I'm thinking, like 7 months. But also, how foolish can a woman be thinking that the man won't find out? Because this is a white person and a black woman person. Like, it's like
It's hilarious, actually.
That's
But-
trying
but-
to
Well, have
be.
you heard of
So
this
it's a
saying,
sad
fear
story,
women?
though. While we might be here, you know,
Because she thought maybe fear women.
How do you think you can get away with that, honestly? Even if you're very brown, like
yeah,
my...
but what is bothering about that particular story is him thinking that, you know, resolving that is murder.
Absolutely.
This is why we did see government come up through Ministry of Health to say you should be careful about
But then the
DNA.
question is, another question is this. This man also makes a very foolish statement. That way back, it said in Israel, that's... But then...
Cheating.
Okay, then why did he hide the body? Clearly he knew what he was doing.
He's
was
just a
what.
murderer.
Absolutely. It was just hidden
this is
into
a
him
murderer.
to murder. But there's another very painful story, sadly. Yesterday there's another story that broke the waves of news. A parent beat up their child to death because they stole a piece of meat. Now, the reason why I talk about this story is that I was listening to this story in the news. I'm like, I thought it was something very interesting for us even to like, what's that makes you kill a child?
I don't think that was
Actually, the worst could,
intentional.
why'd you draw the line, Robert?
Because you people in the legal fraternity, you have first-degree murder, second-degree murder, you have manslaughter, you have, you know, you classify.
Okay,
The parent's
again,
intention was not to kill.
remember the
this
topic we discussed here about chastisement and punishments and all these
Yeah.
things. Like, at what point do you... it's just a hard... The way I love my kids, I don't even want something to pinch. Like, how do you beat a child? Like, a child is a child. a child, and the many things that come with being a child. It's as simple as that. Honestly, I think the parents, our love for meat is becoming too much, clearly. It is now pushing us
but
into...
you see, there are even some homes
No, but that is violence. That there is no other word.
It's murder.
There is no way to put it. It is child violence. It is domestic violence.
It's very sad.
It's sad that we continue to see such cases getting across the place, and we had gotten to a level where the numbers were actually going down, but sadly this is still an issue. There are a lot of things happening, and we will be taking you through.
Did you want us to tell you who you're crushing on, or it's not important?
Oh yeah. You know what? Go ahead, Robert. Felix, I'll give you just half a minute.
Okay. Probably I'll crush on if it makes you...
Oh wow. Thank you so much. The half a minute was clearly a good one.
I put it to good use.
I don't want to give Robert a chance to do that. I feel like he's going to bring out a whole story, taking us 5 minutes on how he crashed on some high school.
Normally crashes on women who sweep roads, like because of what they do.
All right, let's not go there. I'll leave it at that.
Because they wake up at 4 and what and
midwives this morning.
On what?
Sorry?
Midwives.
Come see, he says.
This morning. They do a lot of work. Each one of us, none of us was born in banana plantations. You don't look to be one.
How do you know, Robert?
No, you don't know that. You cannot assume that,
How
Robert.
do you know?
You cannot assume that, Robert. It was probably...
midwife. And so these people usher in life.
Well, yeah,
they're holding to
the
life.
most recent ones are good, but the previous ones...
And the newborn baby, their lives are in the hands of these midwives. You do a lot of work, and of course their pay is not that very interesting. Thank you for being very patriotic. Thank you for the job well done.
Absolutely. We'll be looking into our local stories this morning. Robert and Felix will be taking us through that, and then I'll be going on with international stories. Robert, what are we starting with?
Well, we begin with the president of Senegal, who arrived in Uganda on a 2-day official visit. He was received at Entebbe International Airport by the Minister for Foreign Affairs, General Jeje Odong, before heading to State House Entebbe to meet his host, President Yoweri Museveni. At State House Entebbe, the visiting president inspected a guard of honor before going for a closed-door meeting with his host. Addressing the press shortly after, President Sele expressed his gratitude for the warm reception and emphasized the need to strengthen bilateral cooperation between Senegal and Uganda in various sectors, including trade, security, and intelligence.
Well, now looking at the First Lady and the Minister of Education and Sports, Janet Museveni, did come out to advise young people to pursue the path of sexual purity and self-leadership. Now, wise use of media and technology, she did emphasize, she also appealed to them to apply godly views in all their choices to live successful and meaningful lives. And
moving on a sad note, Mbara Archbishop Emeritus Paul Kamuza Achenga died yesterday morning at Nsambya Hospital in Kampala, where he had gone for his routine health review. Achenga died at the age of 79. The Archbishop Emeritus was battling with diabetes since 2009. Achenga last appeared in public together on the 22nd of April 2022 when Mbara Archdiocese was ordaining priests and deacons, a function that was attended by the Prime Minister Robina Nabanja.
And the board chairperson of Uganda National Bureau of Standards, Charles Musekura, turned at the Committee of Parliament calling for a special audit into the organization's what he calls gross corruption. Now he accuses UNBS Managing Director David Livingstone Ebil for spending $12.5 billion at source illegal tax waivers, accuses inspectors for allowing harmful products to enter the country in exchange for money. Now says his efforts to report these matters to the IGIGI has yielded no results. However, the UNBS board and management were appearing before the Parliamentary Committee on Commission, Statutory and State Enterprise.
Of course, we go on to the international stories. North Korea is reported to have detained a serving U.S. Army soldier who crossed the heavily fortified border from South Korea without permission. The man was on an organized tour of the UN-run zone dividing the two countries. The crisis comes during particularly tense times within the north, one of the world's most isolated states. The U.S. tells its citizens not to go there. Now, a senior U.S. commander said there had been no contact with the soldier, and Admiral John Aquilino, who is the commander of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, said he was not tracking contact with North Korea. He said the soldier had acted willingly by making a run, but without authorization, and the incident was being investigated by the U.S. forces in Korea. Now, former U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he has been informed by authorities that he is a target in a federal United States investigation into the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot, the latest legal war that would be facing as campaigns for the White House again in 2024. Trump said in a statement on Tuesday that he had received a letter from Special Counsel Jack Smith on Sunday asking him to report to a grand jury, an investigative panel, in 4 days, which almost always means an arrest or indictment. Now, away from that, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa said that any attempt to arrest Russian President Vladimir Putin when he visits the country next month would be a declaration of war with Russia. Ramaphosa said in a paper that were released on Tuesday that Russia has made it clear that arresting its sitting president would be a declaration of war. Putin has been invited to a BRICS summit in Johannesburg next month, but is a target of an international criminal court arrest warrant and a provision that Pretoria, as an ICC member, would be expected to implement where he is to attend. And in climate news, large swaths of southern and eastern Europe have been placed on heatwave red alert, and the World Meteorological Organization has warned of an increased risk of death as extreme weather grips the continent, Asia and the United States. The Italian island of Sardinia could see highs of more than 47 Celsius, and on Tuesday, forecasters said temperatures could hit 40 degrees Celsius in several Italian cities, including 42 degrees Celsius to 43 degrees Celsius in the Lazio region. That includes Rome. With baking temperatures hitting Europe during the peak summer tourist season, the heat wave in the northern hemisphere is safe to intensify, said World Meteorological Organization, the weather agency of the United Nations. Now, I'm finding something interesting, especially with the Russian president said to be visiting South Africa. It's quite an interesting part, because there is a warrant for Putin, and he has been in Russia. He is safe, but this guy has audacity, and you see South African President Ramaphosa saying, "Guess what? You will not touch this man." I don't know, Felix, what could we be looking at next month as Putin is expected to be in Johannesburg?
Well, Putin's sanctions emerge from the International Criminal Court, which does sit in Hague. And even, of course, they touch his director being an accessory to war crimes, abuse of all this kind of international policy. But then the question is, since around 2009, there's been questioning of the adoptability of the International Criminal Court's conduct over most of African countries. Many of the questions do emerge from the attack of the US into Iran and Iraq, where you do realize that it caused questions into selective apprehension and selective need to prosecute various leaders. Like,
not to mention what happened in Libya itself.
Definitely, and by then Obama's NATO's launch on and very many others. Now, many countries since then, for example, and Putin is not the one in kind. The very first one we saw, even Uganda itself here, did call on to a controversy against the court order of the ICC, where we saw it failing to arrest Bashir when he was attending the swearing in of His Excellency the President. We saw the same. Actually, Putin is going to South Africa for the 3rd time now. The 2nd time in a row in this year. Remember the BRICS summit that sat there where we did see Brazil, India itself and China in Johannesburg. But later on now they're having a revisit of some of the sideline discussions they have. Because actually they're coming up with a protocol that seeks to demise the existence of the dollar. That's why you see all this mayhem coming up. So it's
no wonder even Putin himself would be very interested.
Definitely, of course, it's a plus for him, but also not forgetting the conglomerate appreciation and the conglomerate need for them to do something called progressive justice has been challenged. For example, when the prosecutions of the Ongwens in the ICC have been questioned time and again, and even on this show we have had this discussion that whose justice is being sought? When you arrest Putin and take him to ICC, whose justice are you seeking? Yeah. So the existence of the ICC is still in question and in a balance, seen as selective, and that's why it is hard to implement. I can tell you without fear of contradiction, Putin has been to Belarus, he has been to Crimea, he has been to Czechoslovakia, Venezuela, all these countries, and he has not been arrested. And probably will go to China, he's supposed to go to North Korea, all these countries. Now, all those countries do not believe in the existence of the ICC. And the big reason is this. US has a lot of control power in the ICC, yet it's not a member state. So it's like a big brother sort of like thing, and that's why it becomes a little bit hard for other countries. I'm guessing
very soon we'll find out how that turns out. But like you say, this has been happening, and obviously if they haven't had an arrest then, I don't know how they will do it, even as they threaten with their words.
Most African countries decided to remain neutral.
To do what?
To remain neutral, not to be dragged into this.
But sadly, they already ratified the Rome Statute. Because they've already ratified the Rome Statute.
But you see, this is not a place you get new to. But
that's the thing. It's not by choice. It's by law.
Yeah.
Because once you sign the Rome Statute, which actually all African countries, apart from probably, but even Sudan, the most recent, did ratify.
Yeah.
Now, it is now that they're waking up like, okay, because the court can't sanction you if you're not a signatory. Yeah. Which most African countries, and sadly, the focus of that court has, apart from the Pinochet case, in Europe, I'm looking at how many cases the Pinochet, you see, even they have failed to sanction the crimes of the biggest genocide in the world. You know, Germany and the Jews, you know that. So no one wants to open that pardon. So it's a bit selective, and I don't think it can pass.
Well, that is a very interesting story that obviously we'll be following up as to when when the president comes to South Africa. I know a lot going to be talked about. But we're looking at our dailies this morning as well. The New Vision leads off with a big headline right there. Government releases 101 billion shillings for pension arrears. That is something, and of course they talk about country registers positive economic indicators. Quite an interesting story right there. They give you the lifetimes of Archbishop Bachenga and much more of that. Government proposes compulsory education tax. This is something that we were very passionate about yesterday. It seems it is still quite interesting. Well, we await to see how that turns out. Senegal to buy Uganda's milk. That is quite also something developing, and could be putting smiles on Ugandan traders, especially when it comes to milk products. Analysts weigh in on FDC party splits. Teachers going beyond call of duty. Much more of that. President appoints judges and registrars. Catch that and more stories in the New Vision. Felix, what do we have in the Daily Monitor this morning?
Of course, in Daily Monitor, Mollen, we do have the big headline, FDC's Day of Reckoning. Now, definitely also, Museveni, Senegalese Sally discuss regional security. In the same papers, details on how man killed wife over DNA. Now, also test your child on English, mathematics, science, and social studies. Is that still social studies in schools?
Yeah.
Yes. The principle for us still there.
The what?
The principle of
So where does literacy fall? Literacy 1, literacy 2, literacy what? This is thing.
Actually, literacy, I think they stop at a level, I think maybe P1. I think they stop somewhere.
I think these kids are studying also. But anyway, now faithful Mon Archbishop Pachenga, and among the tasks NSSF to get new boss.
We will be taking a short break and getting back to our newsreel. We do have a discussion that we want you to be a part of. Do get us on social media. The hashtag is hashtag UBCGMU, and on Twitter at UBCTV Uganda. You can get into a discussion, but for now, we want to take you through an inspirational song of the day. Being a Wednesday, of course, crashing on some of the women that have been inspirational in the music. We give you one of those songs that will actually make you feel like it is Women Crush Wednesday. Good morning. We'll be back with the newsreel.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning, Uganda. It is the time that we come to you to share this morning with you. Welcome to our favorite show. Each morning, we make sure that we are here with you, of course, to update you on what is happening across the country and beyond. It is the 19th day of July 2023, a Woman Crush Wednesday, also one of my favorite days, but probably not the best for Felix. He will be talking to us later. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I do have the two gentlemen with me in studio. That is Kirabo, Nyonyintono, as well as Felix Nkunda, here to make sure that we brighten up your morning and give you all the spices needed for today. But well, while we're at it, we do have the Senegalese president within the country here to meet with President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and of course more of what is being looked at is the bilateral relations between Senegal and Uganda. And of course, as we move forward as Africa, as a continent, we do need these relations, especially when it comes to such strong ties within our security, but also how to grow our economies as Africa. We do hope that this is fruitful and indeed continues to put us in a very, very good relations with the country. We know that the president has been really passionate when it comes to growing the continent as Africa, and of course making sure that we can get on a global competitive nature when it comes to all the resources that we have in Africa. But also on a sad note, guys, we did lose the Archbishop of Mbara Diocese, that is the Emeritus Paul Bachenga. And we know that this is a very huge loss when it comes to the religious fraternity. We do continue to pray with his family and pray that they are strong, and of course the entire fraternity, the entire country, while they are mourning the late Archbishop, and pray that may his soul rest in eternal peace. Now, a lot of things are happening across the country as well. I would want to know what is catching everyone's attention this morning. Robert, you seem to be, ever since this week started, you seem to be doing a lot of this journalistic work. What is tapping your concern?
Well, just as I thought the DNA thing was over, residents of Mpigi woke up to shock when an Israel national killed his wife. This guy is 58 years, and he killed a wife, one Monica Nabukenya, 25 years. Why? Well, they have two kids, and one of the children, who happens to be 7 months after carrying out a DNA test, he confirmed the child wasn't his. So he says back home in their country, cheating is forbidden and it's punishable by death. So he killed the wife, dumped him in a pit, and after some time residents found out that actually he had murdered his wife. And he confessed to it, saying, "This lady cheated on me."
This is a very sick individual.
But still,
that
it
is a
goes
very
back
sick
to
individual.
this issue of DNA. I don't know. I want to tell men, if you're not strong enough, do not risk to do DNA, because you know, you go for a DNA test when you're expecting two answers. These children could be mine or they may not be mine. So do not be fooled to think that when you go to carry out a DNA test, the children automatically must be yours. They will or they may not. So go preparing yourself. Counsel, prepare your mind even before you do these DNA tests. But also far from that, do you know the crested crane?
Oh yeah.
Which national
I'm guessing every Ugandan
do we have
probably.
the crested crane?
I'm guessing every Ugandan probably knows the crested crane and very proud for it to be part of
Which national symbols do we have?
our flag.
Very well.
You know, to have the crested crane on our flag, that is, it's a beautiful bird. Very sad
When
what
you
is
ask
happening.
Felix,
Very sad.
he usually likes to open up. Which two national symbols do we have the crested crane?
I think the colors and the fact that it's standing on one leg, something like that.
No, we have it on the national emblem.
Okay, you didn't
You meant
ask your
the,
question
Yes.
coat of
The
arm and national flag.
No, I don't think. What was your question, Robert?
That was my question.
Kindly repeat your question.
What two national symbols do we have the crested crane?
No, the crested crane itself is a symbol. You might need to rephrase that or restructure that.
Whatever.
You give your
Let's look
answer,
at
but
let's look
Really,
at
you
now.
wouldn't have managed
The issue of
teaching.
concern here happens to be that 4 decades ago we had 100,000 crested cranes in population of this country. And as we speak today, we have only 1,000 left.
so are they edible?
Now, yesterday, residents of Rengo, some farmers poisoned
People have been eating them or what? Where have they
poisoned
gone?
these crested cranes. And so far, those that have been found dead are over 15. The population is decreasing very, very fast.
Don't they give birth to others?
They do give birth, but I don't know. You know,
But
40
according to the
that is
story
40
I was
years
actually
back.
following up, these are being poisoned.
These
It
birds
seems like
also.
intentionally
Like, I mean,
someone is
extinction
trying
is
to
a big-
poison the crested cranes.
Yes.
And that is something that you need to be very, very cautious about.
Because
Someone
if
is
you work
intentionally
upon the-
poisoning them.
And this national symbol is nowhere, then it will mean something very different.
It's really a beautiful bird and very rare to see. But the question I'm asking, like,
Don't they reproduce?
Absolutely.
The biggest
Like-
challenge why the population away from is these birds use wetlands.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, probably.
Wetlands. And that's where they lay their eggs, they do the hatching, they don't use trees. So
Take the beat and make it lit. So no matter what your situation, just use your imagination.
Juko.
Yo.
Wachikuwa.
Achirai.
Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Uganda wange. Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
Ah no, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. But what you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Talk with freedom. Get MTN Freedom voice bundles that don't expire. Dial *100 *21 hash or my MTN app for more bundles. Together, we're unstoppable.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning, Uganda. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're just coming in, we're looking at our newsreel this morning. And we want to dive deep and understand what is happening within the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, following up what was presented to the committee in Parliament. And we do know that the Uganda National Bureau of Standards does work on the standards of almost across everything in the country. And that's a body that you would want to follow up what they are doing. And what we're seeing right now, the saga that we're seeing, does spark interest in knowing how far they are carrying out their services, but also within administration. And this is what I think members of parliament were also trying to understand. What we do know is that the executive director of the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, that is David Livingstone Ibiru, did accuse that board chairman of the Standards Council, that is Mr. Charles Musikura, of being a spy. And according to Ibiru, he did tell the MPs on the committee on commission statutory authorities and state enterprises that, you know, someone like that, maybe according to the information he was bringing on, there is no way who could have known that information unless he was a spy. And this speaks a lot when it comes to administration within the UNBS, but also much more of, this is a body that is well respected, especially to uphold standards. And what, how this whole story started, how are they getting in this place, you know, to even get into accusing one another? Because they are all in the same body. Robert, I will bring you in here first. How is UNBS getting here?
First, we must say this is very unfortunate.
Why is it unfortunate?
It is unfortunate, I would agree with him.
The mandate of this body, you know, we must take things very serious. A standards body of any country is very important. Because when you have low standards, they have an impact on life. They have an impact, even the accidents we're talking about. Because this is a body mandated to test what is produced within the country and also liaise with other international bodies to verify what comes into the country, if it is safe. Now, I'll just give a brief example. People talk about food security, but the world now has moved to food safety. These are two different things. Food security means you having enough food, but food safety means you eating food that is safe. If it is not safe, it can be dangerous. Today we are talking about collapsing buildings. My brother Felix here can testify, and many people there, that
He's a realtor.
Today, no, Felix is so much into construction. Most of the times he calls me for some consultants in that area. So what happens is, today you buy an iron bar certified by UNBS. And before the building, the concrete dries, it is carving. Ask our farmers today, farm inputs, go to electronics. You have an extension cable, you put in something, it blows. So UNBS is very, very important. So important to save the lives of Ugandans, but also in export, very important. We saw the standoff between Uganda and South Sudan on the levels of aflatoxins that were in our maize. And all guns went to UNBS. And we found that even when they brought back these bats for testing, still they found some of these consignments had aflatoxins. Now, that becomes a problem. Where was this inspecting body? Now, when the chairman of the National Standards Council comes out and says, and remember, this followed a report. COSASE did not just have information from anywhere. The Auditor General's report came out and indicated gaps, abuses, corruption in this institution. COSASE picked up from there. Now,
when the chairman board comes up and says, look, I looked at this man. First I thought maybe I wasn't getting the information right. When he said, let me tell you, UNBS needs total, not even revamp.
Overhauled.
Overhaul. Why? He said the corruption there. The inspectors are so corrupt, they leave fake products to go on the market because they have been given money. Now, when a product is not fit for consumption or utilization and goes on market, it has an impact. It is a danger to people's lives. If it can be food, it can be a home appliance, it can be so that is a problem. But you also note that also the issue of letters coming from various VIPs telling UNBS to exempt. Felix is manufacturing his waraji.
Seriously.
Mollen is manufacturing her cakes or what?
And what are you manufacturing?
Kirabo is dealing in appliances. He has a factory. He manufactures electro appliances.
Felix, it's not bad business. It's just an example.
It's just about how he apportions.
Example, is it?
But it's okay.
Yes.
So if Kirabo, I don't have anybody.
The appliance man.
I'll pay inspection. They'll verify my products. Now a Kenyena may have someone who write a letter and tell someone, do not check those cakes if they are fit for consumption. You know, I'm paying inspection money. Now Felix of Waraji, and Waraji has killed a lot of people. Felix, you for exemption have paid. Nkunda is for bribing. When these inspectors come, the Waraji man gets out with a bunch of money.
But Robert, we're also looking at this particular angle. There has not been any reported accusations towards a regard like that. We don't see people that come up and say, I have been treated unfairly when it comes to UNBS, approving my product. And this is something that is still looked at as a general in terms of corruption.
Action.
But putting it on such a spot.
This is what happens. People cry silently. In Uganda, what happens is, where are you airing your concerns? I want to tell you, we had Hallelujah reflexology. Remember these Hallelujah drinks, what? The man was one of the people raised and said, but you people, I bring a product, the cost of products. People do, but at what level? And who are you? You know, we're in the animal farm sometimes. If Nkunda the Waraji man drives out his way, and the Waraji goes to the market, and Mollen gets a letter stopping, and Kirabo pays. Now, why UNBS is very important, that at the end of the day, either directly or indirectly, the mistakes in this institution have a direct impact on Ugandans.
And that is something that we would want to understand more clearly, because if you're looking at what is unveiling from this particular body, I found the statements from the ED quite they seem defensive, because that came after the board chairperson, that is Mr. Msekura, came out to say that UNBS has become, in his words, has become a den of corruption. And he did cite that we're looking at a situation where officers in this bureau are taking in bribes to allow substandard products to be imported into the country. Now that is huge, and which is why now statements of the ED coming out after that saying, you know, this man is a spy, did seem very defensive. But what we are looking at here is, as we streamline to have standardized products, both the ones that are being made here and of course for consumption in the country, and the ones that are being imported are being upholded to a standard that we need. But when we see issues of corruption coming in, this is particularly why the committee is trying to investigate, find out what really is going on, because the chair is saying, no, you cannot trust UNBS anymore. These are allowing substandard products to get into the country. Now, it speaks a lot when it comes to administration itself, because you're looking at corrupt officers, probably even some of the top bosses involved. This is just a probably. But where are we getting this problem, Felix? Is it that the administration has failed, or is it that we're looking at, government not paying attention to such institutions like the Ghana National Bureau of Standards?
Well, I think for the break-in, government, I can exonerate government for starters in this discussion. I'll be honest with you, and pick up from my narrative where I have time and again emphasized that in many Ugandan offices, and by far government offices, you have the wrong people. How they got there, it's only God who knows. And this is the price of nepotism, the price of tribalism, the price of mediocre existences. Now, that's the price we pay for all these other things. That in an office where we should have someone sane, someone sober, you're having someone because they are sober in terms of being your tribe mate. These are the evidences of what we struggle from. Let me just give you the reason why every organized civil society must have a standards body. For example, what are standards? Probably it will help us also shape the analogy, why this is an issue. Standards, they reflect the existence of a wanted, later on also unwanted knowledge, quality, assurance, and of course standards of any consumable in terms of being a good or a service. And that without fear of contradiction. That the reason why standards also prefer to be appreciated at a society level and indifferently is because every society has its own bar raised at a particular point. That's why you've been having issues with countries like Kenya, Rwanda, South Sudan, most recent, in regard to aflatoxins. That according to their standards, you don't pass. You could pass to Ugandan standard, and that's with the contradiction. That's why you've seen these mediocres of yours from what you called you are use it URS UNBS trying to play defensive. We tested, then we tested. They're trying to play fake defense.
That came back still.
Now that means that
someone slept on you.
That's what I'm saying.
Or benefited.
No, because you have mediocres.
We don't have a
because
uniform.
You have mediocres.
Is it about the uniform standard that we have to
uniformity? You see, a universal standard is different now. But let's start with what we call a society standard, which is Uganda as a society.
Yes.
Now, when you go to what we call a community or a block standard, it's also different. And later on, of course, the world standard. That's why you have issues like ISO, okay? You have ILO. All those ones are standard bodies. But before you go to those, they are national. Now, national standards must fit into block and international standards. But what are you doing here? I can tell you what's happening. Because you employ mediocre people, and that's the problem of employing past degree people into government offices. Now, someone can't understand the use of why we put standards as a country, because it is evident that when someone eats a poisoned food, they get sick. The burden goes on to the healthcare system. And later on, which is also definitely wanting. You're failing to treat malaria, now you're adding poison. Now, how do you convince me those are not past degree people?
But maybe, brother Felix,
and just
as one clarification.
On past degrees or what?
I don't think the issue is past degrees. Because here it's not ignorance. Here this is intended. That someone gets money to let a wrong thing pass. Not because people who have robbed this country are not ignorant. We have people with PhDs, first-class degrees. but they are robbing us day and night.
Okay.
And I'll give you,
me-
Robert, time to say more on that.
Okay.
But Felix, as we talk about the standards here, we want to bring in the fact that as Uganda, are we comfortable with the standard that we have put across, that we shouldn't be expecting other bodies to international standard to verify
it's what I'm
we
saying. Because a country like Uganda is not self-existing, okay? It fits directly into the bigger spaces of international trade, cross-border trade. Because a country that is yearning to increase its GDP, to break borders is one of its major mandates, to be able to execute and appreciate that. Now, it means that you must increase exportation vis-a-vis importation. So, the international standards actually matter more to you than local standards. Now, the analogy, you see, you people want to sugarcoat the reality. This whole analogy of saying that people are being corrupt and what? I can't conclusively trust the education system when you come and tell me a first degree, and I'm not even attacking my own self in a way, but it is not conclusive that the first degree people cannot perform better. But there are positions that are cut out for people who carry the relevant experience. When an ED and the chairman clash before a parliamentary committee, what does that show to you? One is saying, look here, what is happening is stinking. That is now the boss telling the subordinate. And the subordinate is saying, why didn't you tell me about that? How foolish a statement is that?
And he's accusing him of being a spy.
Does that man have a job by last evening? How do you tell your chairman that? Because the man is saying the reality. And what's wrong with him being a spy? He's a chairperson. That's part of his duty, to smell all the stench in the institution. Are you accusing him of doing his job? You see, the problem, and what he said is true. I've continuously talked about a contestation between political administration and social welfare administration in this country. That it comes true to what the chairman is telling us. For example, political intermeddling. Okay? Kirabo is a struggling manufacturer in Kampala or Uganda, and he needs to grow as a Ugandan. But he's not being given opportunity. He's being shut down consistently because he can't afford to bribe these standards inspectors. But there's someone out there who is in for business and is going to bring poison and deadly consumables on the market. But if he can pay his way through. And I told you yesterday, and those people worse than ADF you're here singing about, who's the worst evil? The rebellists, they are hiding, but this evil person is living amongst us, and sadly, they're even being paid to kill Ugandans. They pay the salary. Some of them are fighting for pension and whatreat and all these things. But who's the worst evil in this? Now, when you see such bodies, well, who do you put the blame on to? And what is probably a portioning of responsibility? Here's the thing, and that's where I started. When I talked about mediocre people in government offices, that's what I'm trying to say. Probably we should now revisit the recruitment processes. Let me tell you, standards are even more important. Let me tell you, standards could be important than some of the arms of government. Because they come against all of us. These accidents you see on the roads, maybe someone didn't check the quality of tires. I gave you a live example here. If you want to cry tears of blood or whatever, get a 1.5 liter sort of like a mineral water bottle, okay? Go to a petrol station and tell them that, because there they'll tell you, a liter is probably 4,500. Tell them I want 1.5 liters. And you see if that bottle will be full. And that I can challenge any one of you to do. He talked about building materials. Sometimes even the engineers can't explain why buildings collapse. But the explanation is because of these past degrees and mediocre people in these offices who can't understand the use of paying attention to detail when they're employed. And the man is telling you, I have run to the IGG, in his words. But all these have been futile. It had to come from the Auditor General. Now, who is for Ugandans? And that's the question we ask after, at the conclusion of these stories. This is what we ask. Yesterday, I think they launched something to do with giving out mosquito nets. Robert, you remember there was a launch and what? But now, as we say, all those efforts are not useful because they are in divergent directions. We must agree Uganda to move in one direction, a standardized way of living. Because we may give the nets to the poor people to avoid malaria, but they are dying because of the food they are eating, the biscuits on the market, the juice on the market. We can't let everyone sell, but like everything that has been rejected elsewhere is being, like there's what you used to say called dumping. Dumping. Honestly and truly, you go to supermarkets today. I've given you one of the examples, and many of our viewers in their messages can give us some of the experiences with less quality products they have faced. I've been a victim many a times. Many a times. And it goes to even, like, you know, it's quite sad, but it was very good that yesterday that happened in Parliament, I can tell you. It was confirmation to what we say on this show every day. It was confirmation to the many lies these institutions tell Ugandans to try and show that everything is good. You remember the issue of the waraji that killed people?
Yeah.
You get the point. And many things. Let me tell you, I don't want to be specific because probably I will be talking about people's, but the evidence. And remember last time when I told you on this show we're talking about this South Sudan getting the maize of Ugandans, and I told you guys, how about we pause for a minute and we not focus on South Sudan, don't focus on Kenya, focus on us. And that's what they call leadership. Sometimes the problem must be isolated and looked at individually. South Sudan is bad. Yeah, it just got independence. So what? They know what they want. You have been at it for 60 years. You're simply ingratizing yourselves in simple whining and dancing as mediocres.
About that.
Just a moment before you interject.
So for me, anyway, lastly, I would just want to say this about this whole thing that happened yesterday. Unfortunately, we don't know who hires these people. But I know for a fact under the law that someone who hires has a right to fire. So these people have given in their resignations before the committee. I don't know what they are waiting for, whoever hired them. Because they resigned yesterday from what they are saying, both of them. Someone confirmed that there is stench at the bureau, and the other was trying to say equally. Actually, the other one was affirming loosely. Of course, you don't, someone, when you start speaking those things, and being a spy. So both of them resigned before the committee. It will be foolhardy, just like we faced many, and this is what I always tell my friend Joel, Honorable Nyonyintono, that these things will go on record on you. You may show us what's happening, but you've not helped. Parliament, you may need to help. And I like what Robert said. I think he said, you quoted someone, when they said, the beauty about standards, we are all affected. We are all affected. Because absolutely, probably before we know, even the air we breathe in
could be
could be less of standard.
And we just came out with a report also on that. I think about the air quality. Is reading the numbers, they are not looking good. But right on that, as you talk about the committee, that is COSASI, having been at the forefront of this, unveiling some of the issues that as Ugandans we do not see. We also want to understand. After this is done, we are looking at a body right now that is struggling. Top administration is saying, you know what, I'm resigning. It's going to be hard to uncover most of this stuff. But at the end of the day, we're fighting corruption here. And this says a lot. I like how Felix said it. This says a lot about our standards here as a country. While we might accuse different countries, Kenya, South Sudan, the list is endless, of not taking in our products, we are consuming these products here. How do we streamline our standards right from the inception, not just to the bureau itself, but how do we structure ourselves as a country to ensure that there are standards in this country?
Well, first, the day we stop acting and behaving like an ostrich.
How does it behave?
See, an ostrich will hide its head in the sand and leave the entire body out.
There's a particular part.
leave the entire body out. That's how Ugandans are behaving when it comes to corruption. Everyone will pretend to be very right. Even Kosasa has ever been accused. I remember it came on the floor of Parliament. Yeah. Evidence is what they lacked. But neither they were. Ugandans, let me tell you. Yes. Do you still remember the issues of Uganda race before Kosase? How we bought wagons? Old wagons at a value more expensive
and were not fitting
than new wagons.
I remember
the money we spent to purchase second hand would buy brand new wagons.
But where are those wagons, by the way? Because I've never
when
seen.
we brought these wagons, they could not even move on the rails we have. I can't mention, the list is endless. That every day you wake up, what is happening at Uganda National Bureau of Standards? It's happening everywhere. Recently, what was happening at Ministry of Energy when Honorable Betty Kamya, the IGG, reached there? What did she say?
But that was also
stinking corruption.
Was it enough?
And of course, investigations are going on. Now, these two officials are coming back today. I hope we are ready for more drama.
I can predict
in
what
this
will
committee.
happen.
I'm happy you're bringing in drama.
Talked about resignation. Yeah. My brother, I've lived long enough.
Have you?
To find out that in Uganda, people never resign. Think it is Jennifer Musisi, and you can count them on fingertips. In Uganda, you die with your sins. You go till the end. Now, don't expect resignation, because that is not part of our culture. For the Western world, that can happen. But the problem is much bigger than UNBS. This is a national problem. And I'll quote the words of the late Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Olanya. One time, government organized what they called the anti-corruption walk. It was coming from Constitutional Square, now City Square, walking up to Kololo. His Excellency was there and other dignitaries.
What did he say?
Olanya said, Your Excellency, all of us here are corrupt. We are here on camera to speak, but when we leave this place, we are going to do the same thing. And when I looked through with my investigative eyes, I would see people in various corruption scandals occupying offices, and they are marching a march against corruption. Who is fooling who? This country, we've not condemned corruption. We don't have the will to condemn corruption. This man talked about letters of exemption, that he has a box, boxes, an official writes and tells you, exempt that person.
He has the evidence.
I want to commend this man, because very many government officers go through the same thing, but they cannot come out and speak. That's why he reached a point and said that those I may not even say on camera. Here we condemn corruption when you're not a beneficiary. And by the way, the day we wake up and we say no to corruption, you're going to see people who will die on spot. You're going to see people who will go to Butabika Hospital. You're going to see people who will cause accidents on the road. All of us, corruption, that is just a drop in an ocean. The problem is so broad, we must address it with the will. We have the laws, we have the institutions. What are we lacking is willingness and fighting selective justice. People talk about the law. I don't want to be deceived that Geoffrey Kazinda was the most stupid creature in terms of stealing government money, that he was arrested. There was a will. There was maybe someone to save. I don't want to believe the likes of Jimmy Ramafa, that for them, the laws we have can nab sufficient people. But we've lacked the will. We have selective justice. That is why my Obi, Senor, he's finding it hard to drive the journey home. That you will, now what he's doing is just kurabisa, you know. It is good for media. It is good for our people.
For the bulletin.
For the bulletins. For us to talk about it at the end of the month, get paid. For you to view us and have this information. But it is not good for this nation because we do not go to the latter. Today it is UNBS. We had Uganda Railways. We had the airport scandal. We had NEMA. We had Uganda Mission. We had NSSF.
Uganda Airlines.
Where someone on the floor and in the committee was asked, do you know so and so? How do you call her? My cousin. Do you know so and so? My brother. Do you know so and so? My in-law. In the same department. Today the Minister for Gender, Labor and Social Development, he's saying, but no, you can't exonerate this man. He held a press conference and it trashed whatever the minister had said. So, as we are still romancing corruption, we cannot come out and all of us now look at UNBS officials as the people who have committed the worst sins. People have been in corruption scandals. They are just being transferred sometimes or getting new appointments. Today we are talking of the Global Fund. What happened to the people in this Global Fund scandal? Today we are having over 28.7 million nets, 28.5 million nets that are going to be given to people under Global Fund and against malaria campaign and government of Uganda. But those people that robbed these people with HIV AIDS, where are they? Some have been reappointed in bigger offices, maybe.
So clearly,
as I wind up this, Ugandans, that they will stop talking, we stop acting like an ostrich, that when you point to Kirabo, I say, I'm not corrupt. But the truth is, I know it. We lack the willingness. We lack the willingness. We've done so much lip service. I'm telling you today, these people are going to leave this Kosase, go back to their offices, Sam, continue.
And do the same
and do the
exact
same
thing.
But where can this happen? Some of them with those confessions today would be in cells somewhere being investigated. I was watching a story where an officer attendant was in charge of procuring vehicles. Officer attendant to a tune of 6 billion plus.
We are not paying attention to most of what is supposed to be done by these officers, and a lot of them get away with it.
And this was still
we do need you to come in with your comments on this, what you really think about the corruption that is going on with most of these government parastatals or government organs that continuously are implicated by Kosase, but also something that a lot of Ugandans have seen. Our WhatsApp number, you can actually send us an SMS as well as a WhatsApp message, that is 0709 602 592. Now, as we move to conclude, Felix, we are looking at the aftermath of the previous cases that were unveiled by Kosase, and Robert did give a list of that. But at the end of the day, the action that comes in after that is not something that is visible. We are here talking about UNBS right now, but the action trend that is expected is also lying within the same margin of how do we move forward as a country. We are talking about standards here.
Yeah, but you see, Mollen and Robert and our viewers, when abnormality becomes normal, clearly the normal people become the dense ones. I can tell you that many times when you discuss such things, people call you, because now you're saying the right thing, you become the abnormal one. And we have had, and it seems that as a country we have accepted to be in bed with evil. That's why Robert is here arguing about well, they didn't do anything because it is the normal. Now, in scenarios where people want to tie on to us abnormality, what we are saying as Ugandans is this, that this country doesn't belong to individuals. And that's a matter of fact. This is all our country. However, most recently, it looks like it's a few people who own what happens here. And that's what the chairman is saying, that we have piles of letters of exemptions. But someone is asking you to make an exemption against a substandard product or service. But why? For their own benefit. Why? It is us against them. Now, this has become the normative. I can tell you without fear of doubt and painfully, I want to ask you a question. For some of you who drink soda, I won't mention any type of soda, but for some of you who take sugar, some of you who consume all these things, who buy soap, who tell me, do you think it serves the purpose anymore?
I used to put two teaspoons. Now when I put 2, it's like there is no sugar. I thought I had an health problem.
Standards.
Until everyone was
standards. In that when you buy soap, you'll need probably 1 bar to wash 2 basins. Previously, we just used to cut a very small piece. All these things, and that informs directly the economic challenges we are struggling with. That 10, 15 years ago, we never used to, the usage was little because the purity was high. I don't know if it makes sense that way. Some of the challenges we have, like when you say that today I have to buy soap after 3 days, this is not the economy. It's those guys in those offices. They're the ones I told you, the P guys. Because they're not doing their work. Now, it becomes an expensive lifestyle for us. That the fuel you buy today used to take you a distance. It no longer can't because it is not quality like it used to be. It's very simple things, just like soda. Remember when you used to have soda through the nose? Which soda can now go? It had some conch element. But today, everything on the market, everything is, even when you go to our beautiful sisters here who love to buy hair, I feel sorry for people who buy natural products like Vaseline. Someone buys Vaseline to just deal away with the dry skin. Or they are either blacker, because there was even a Vaseline here known for making people black. Another Vaseline was attracting mosquitoes. Now, what kind of Vaseline is this? It was like an invitation, and those things are on the market. I can tell you the things on this. If you want to cry, just go and sample from every type of product. So what I'm saying is that this situation probably calls for all of us to awaken ourselves. I believe the head of state is aware of this, is watching what is in parliament, probably also what we are discussing here. This all will be counted on the head of this government. Sadly, without even his contribution, sadly, because they are employing able-bodied people in courts, able-minded people in courts. You can't expect the Mzee to come and crack whips on even someone now. If an institution that has a minister, PS, gives mandate to an attendant to purchase motor vehicles,
they defended him.
You want to blame
the chairperson
for
said
that?
He's an office attendant, yes, but he has a degree in procurement.
That is not his job.
But you can imagine.
But it's an office.
So someone is saying that before.
A committee.
Now, you also want to blame the head of state for that? You want me to say that His Excellency has failed because someone can't check soap, sabun? That can't be against the head of state. That must be against our conscience as Ugandans. You are talking about the crested crane in our opening remarks. These are the same things you're talking about. Okay? Someone doesn't have the brain, the very little, by the way, just need a drop of it to understand that this is a national emblem that can't be extinct. It is a sign of power, a sign of honor, a sign of existence. It is carried to define you as a country, but you're poisoning it. That you just need to have a drop of brain. You don't have to have a big brain, you know. So the problem is for us Ugandans. We have chosen to be mediocres. Look at the water. today, the different types of water on the market, like all these things, we are aware with the problem. We need to be our own, because
right there, and we'll be looking at what some of our viewers also coming up to say. Someone does agree with you. That is James from Namatumba, who says, let the president, who is our hero, rise and fight this battle, beginning from top officials, punish the corrupt enemies of our country. And we do have also someone else coming in to say that from the information you have, colleagues, you cannot clean the carpet to cleanliness while the floor is still compacted with dust. So as we think about eliminating the corruption and all that, we need to change leadership. And he goes on and on. That is something that is also we have touched on this morning. And someone else is coming in to say that sadly we have acknowledged corruption as our way of life. It's something that it's shameful, but this is what is happening within the country.
Abnormality has become.
We are making the abnormal normal.
Yeah, so the normal people become the fools.
You
will wake up to talk about these things. They will see you as a fool, because that's why they say nobody puts.
We'll leave it at that, and obviously we do still encourage you to get into the conversation. We'll be getting into the comments later on, but for now we also want to look at what is happening within neighbors, and we'll be looking at the dailies today, looking at the Daily Nation heading off with a headline, Azimio demos on as truce bid flops. And that is still unveiling what is happening in Kenya, looking at the battle with Azimio's Raila Odinga and President Ruto. Why top U.S. trade official refused to meet Kuria? Well, that is also a story for you in today's Daily Nation. They also talk about Comio appoints 3 judges to hear tax law case. And as we cross over onto the Citizen for this morning, also leading off with a big headline, a government poised to challenge order to pay the farm $109 million, and much more on that. Tobacco growers feel pinch of glut as dollar shortage. Well, fuel farms speak out after Ewura warns on the hoarders. Quite interesting right there. Tanzania, Hungary pledged to strengthen bilateral ties. Much more of those stories also in the dailies for today. We will be taking in a short break for now. When we get back, we look at the traffic situation and also take you through the weather situation for today, looking at our satellites. Later than that, we'll also be getting into more conversation with Good Morning Uganda agenda. Do stay with us.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
These days, our homes are no longer just the places we live. It's where we attend meetings, go to class, keep each other safe, and entertain ourselves. To do this smoothly, you need a reliable internet connection. Buy the MTN WakaNet router, which connects up to 32 devices and gets a free 40 GB data bundle at only 149,000 shillings. Or buy the MTN WakaNet MiFi at only 75,000 shillings and enjoy a free 15 GB bundle to stream, study, work, and play on the go. Visit any MTN service center to buy the MTN WakaNet router or MiFi and enjoy the internet that does amazing things.
Amaina ndina abiri Jennifer okuva mwero si ekigusa ekyaganibwa muterere town council. We bwatuuka nga ndi kunika business kange kano nalinako nga amaani matono ino. Haina wuliriza nkoze mfaze magezi ki ka business kankano okweyongeramu. Abaye mulango ogwaida gwa gavumenti nti eriyo emyoga gyamba abantu kusitula mu buli muntu mbeera y'abataalimu. Najaayo kirungi nali leader, nagira mu group y'aba leaders, nafunayo obusente, naida nayongera mu ka business kange kano. Era nigano yo mukaganire nga nikano bwe kali kati kiyambisa bubi yambisa bulungi nga bwe muli kugibona. Sente zino nadifuniye mu nga bwe ndi kubakobera danga siisaamu kuba business yange bwe yali kibweri yeyongeiremu. Sente zino dangasa kale nze basebo mbebaza ba programu ye mwatuleetamu nebaza nti kabiri banange we buli awo kyongero nga muli kumbona nkayenda bwende wale nali wansi ayi kabiri butindize kuku waigulu.
Road traffic crashes is one of the leading causes of death among young people aged 5 and 29 years. In 2022, Uganda registered 21,473 crashes, out of which 4,534 people died and 15,227 seriously injured. 22 people die every 100 crashes, and on average, we lose 12 people daily. Legacy Road Safety Initiative, in partnership with KCCA, Ministry of Works and Transport, Ministry of Health, Uganda Police Force, Red Cross, Rosaku, Boda Boda Industry Uganda, have organized the second Road Safety Marathon for the crash victims to help create awareness, build cohesion among stakeholders, train first responders at black spots, and support a health facility. The marathon will take place on the 23rd of July 2023, starting at 7 a.m. from Nakasero Primary School grounds. Book your kits at 25,000 from Legacy Road Safety Initiative offices located at Old Kampala Chicken House, 2nd floor, room 18, or 8th Street, Safeway, Rightway offices, Total Energies, Ovino Mall, Boda Boda Industry Uganda, or visit www.lrs-initiative.org to register. Call 0752 605 479 or 0776 598 817 or 0414 698 675. Proudly powered by Daxi Driving School and Wava Water. Run to save a limb.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. We will be looking at the traffic update for this morning now around areas of Muyenga, Kabalagala, Kansanga. If you're coming in from that side towards Central City, you might need to look out for some of the roads for this morning. Looking at clear traffic across Gaba Road, that is indicated by the green lines over there. We're also looking at, that is if you're coming in from the side of Kansanga, you do have quite clear traffic across Gaba Road. But also Muyenga Tank Hill Road this morning looks quite clear, and that should be easy to navigate as you make your way into town. And also some of the roads connecting there. Bukasa Road has clear traffic, Namuongo Road as well with clear traffic for this morning. Muyenga Road also does have quite some clear traffic. That is going to be easy if you're coming in from that side. Now if you're connecting from that area towards as you head towards Makinde, we're looking at Lukuli Road as well over that side, that has very clear traffic this morning and could be easy to follow up. But then again, as you extend towards town, Mbogo Road looks to have clear traffic. We are looking at some of the connecting roads right there, that is over across Gaba Road, Zambia Estate Road as well. You do have a bit of traffic that is building up as you're joining in from Gaba Road onto Zambia Estate Road. We do have just a small distance with a bit of traffic, but then that does clear as you continue into town. Also a small distance that is off Zambia Road that does have a bit of traffic, but it looks like that is also quite small, and maybe it might not be something much to keep you behind, but you should be aware of that. Looking at Mukwano Road this morning as well, a bit of traffic but not so intense, and moving via that, does get you into town, because the traffic is actually just on that junction that does connect again Zambia Road towards Mukwano Road, right over there, and that should easily get you into town this morning. We also want to look at the weather satellite for this morning over Uganda. We're still looking at much more clear skies, showing for much of northern Uganda as well as the eastern parts of the country. We're still looking at most of those dry winds that are coming in, especially from the southern half of Africa towards the country, and the white lines over there on the map indicating the flow of winds towards the country. We do have a few southeasterly winds that are coming in from the Indian Ocean towards the country, especially towards the Karamoja region and eastern Uganda. Unfortunately for us, those are not carrying moisture, and most of those are actually high-level winds, so they are not influencing any wet weather activities over the region for now, which is why we continue to see a dry weather for much of the country. Also today, we also are looking at a very dry day for southwestern Uganda as well as the West Nile. That whole stretch is expected to have mostly dry weather. We're seeing less activity when it comes to the winds that usually moving towards this area to enhance also rainy conditions across that particular area. And usually the western stretch does get influence from the Congo air mass, or the advection of Congo air conditions towards the country. But what we're seeing on the map from our satellites right now is that much of that activity is very, very low, which explains also the continuous dry weather that is experienced over the western parts of the country. We do have a few winds that are starting to converge, that is across the Lake Victoria, but it looks like most of those are also not bringing in rainy conditions across the area. So much of today, from the forecast that we're seeing coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority, much of today morning is expected to be dry across almost everywhere in the country. We also have temperatures in the mid-20s for the Lake Victoria Basin and southwestern Uganda. We're looking at the lower 20s for the Kabaale Highlands. Otherwise, much of the country is expected to be in the upper 20s for this morning. So if you're looking at that, it means that even by afternoon, we could be looking at numbers crossing into the lower 30s, and that does indicate quite a hot day for Uganda today, one that you should be aware of. If you're moving out or if you're going to be anywhere, we still continue to tell you to avoid the sun if you don't have to really be out there. And of course, keep yourself hydrated during these times where we have high temperatures and a lot of dry weather across much of the country. We'll leave it at that. We do have Good Morning Uganda agenda that will be coming in right after this. My name is Mollen Kenyena. I want to wish you a good Wednesday.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
This is the University of Africa. On the streets, you get your real education. Here, everybody has a degree of something. But the most important qualification is imagination. His reason is to be the GOAT. The reason to imagine is to take the beat and make it lit. So no matter what your situation, just use your imagination.
Road traffic crashes is one of the leading causes of death among young people aged 5 and 29 years. In 2022, Uganda registered 21,473 crashes, out of which 4,534 people died and 15,227 seriously injured. 22 people die every 100 crashes, and on average, we lose 12 people daily. Legacy Road Safety Initiative, in partnership with KCCA, Ministry of Works and Transport, Ministry of Health, Uganda Police Force, Red Cross, Rosaku, Boda Boda Industry Uganda, have organized the second Road Safety Marathon for the crash victims to help create awareness, build cohesion among stakeholders, train first responders at black spots, and support a health facility. The marathon will take place on the 23rd 23rd of July 2023, starting at 7 a.m. from Nakasero Primary School grounds. Book your kids at 25,000 from Legacy Road Safety Initiative offices located at Old Kampala Chicken House, 2nd floor, room 18, or 8th Street, Safeway, Rightway offices, Total Energies, Ovino Mall, Boda Boda Industry Uganda, or visit www.lrs-initiative.org to register. Call 0752 605 479 or 0776 598 817 or 0414 698 675. Proudly powered by Daxi Driving School and Wava Water. Run to save a limb.
And in talking news, MTN has improved on their data voice bundles. You can now call across all networks for the same price. We've talked to several eyewitnesses on the ground, and this is what one of them had to say.
Amos, did you hear about the MTN daily voice bundles?
So, to join many more other Ugandans enjoying these MTN daily voice bundles, dial *100 *21# or use the My MTN app to start enjoying. Stay tuned for more offers from MTN.
Amaina gange ndi namaganda Mariamu Monda myoga jaida emyoga igitandika okwida nafunamu esente bampa yakakayira kesente bwe bampa akakayira kesente nayiye ekyokukola nasookera ku mutyere omutyere gwapanga beeyi naguvwako nanoonya omwana twageddaga n'amagezi nagema esente edo namuwa yaje yagula supeya ow'ebyuma muno pikipiki ne obugaali buti saawa eno ndi kuyiiya okuleeta ebyuma ebimala ku bwena abakabiri bampaireyo ku esente nakuba okunoonya y'abaana babeegeresenga gano okukanika ki pikipiki era bali kujja mpolampola nga bakanika era esente bwe tunaaba tudifuna nenda kwongera mu maani mu sente bwenaaba ndifunye twongeremu ntewo bizinensi emala nenda okwebaza gavumenti egiira okutulowoozaako niife abaagansi mu kyalo okufuna esente kuba twalinga n'esente nga tulumukira mu banka bugiri butige baida ku numba ng'eno najjayo ku bwe baida ku numba baida kutaa ku bigandiiko aye dino tutwalayo mpolampola nenda okwebaza gavumenti olw'okulowooza ku nsonga eyo mukama abawa omukisa.
In fulfillment of the constitutional obligation, which mandates the state to make reasonable provision for the welfare and maintenance of the aged, the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is implementing the Social Assistance Programme for Empowerment, SAGE, designed to provide income security and reduce poverty among older persons. Over 300,000 older persons in 146 districts in Uganda have benefited from the grants. The income security has made life better for eligible older persons aged 80 years and above, registered with the National Identification Registration Authority, NIRA.
Biro ruki achola ana ti gum ati ya chandi ang bi an ara chien binu ko bekachu ena meo chaho miya ate wilo kere romo ena dungu te biro miya ni miya puru mogo eno keno te doyo kere mogo ana biro tiyu kere jama me konya gira kada do kada choti chok Tiene no gira ana mi ukonya yuri moro duchu. Me mia teho ikwa. Me chuli chukul. Nyako ni nyaka me neno tiyo owere kere nya. Para mano mi abuelo corre no. Tera tiki tera kububa kori yoyi te kere da me roma gira.
This is a message from Expanding Social Protection, ESP, implementing the program under the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. ESP, better life chances for all.
These days, our homes are no longer just the places we live. It's where we attend meetings, go to class, keep each other safe, and entertain ourselves. To do this smoothly, you need a reliable internet connection. Buy the MTN WakaNet router, which connects up to 32 devices and gets a free 40 GB data bundle at only 149,000 shillings. Or buy the MTN WakaNet MiFi at only 75,000 shillings and enjoy a free 15 GB bundle to stream, study, work, and play on the go. Visit any MTN service center to buy the MTN WakaNet router or MiFi and enjoy the internet that does amazing things.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, welcome back. We are getting into the agenda this morning, and a topic of discussion. We are looking at mainstream media, especially when we're talking about issues concerning how to actually, streamline or talk about government business. And most of that usually done through advertisement, most of that usually done through reaching out to media to showcase what government is doing, but also most importantly, to reach out to the general population. And on the forefront of that is the national broadcaster. That is where we come in as Uganda Broadcasting Corporation to take on that mantle and make sure that we do inform every day. We do extend information to every Ugandan, and also, considering the reach that we have almost across the entire country. Now, we have seen earlier there was a presidential directive, obviously, on how government agencies, government ministries are getting information or channeling information that they want to push out there through the national broadcaster. Felix, we are trying to understand and join the Ugandans also in getting this information on the relevance that we're talking about here, and how important it is to actually have most of government business or most of the information that is being passed out go through the national broadcaster, but mainly focusing on what is the bigger picture here.
Well, I think it has been loosely appreciated when people misconceive institutions that are government founded. And if you're talking about the media space, media space, you notice that there's need for every legitimate government to have a national airspace, and the reasons are very many. But I want to give you first of the reasons why it's important to put first a national media body. In this case, for example, in Uganda, you have the Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. In fact, we were having an argument recently with some of the policy framers, and we are saying that on this, in the definition, you missed the word national. So we are trying to have that argument and trying to say that it should have been probably the Uganda National Broadcasting Corporation or something like that. Because it is national in the way that it is the only mandated institutions, actually mandated institution to carry out information, which is educative, it manifests itself in education, informative, and very many others. And that's why every country must, as long as it's a civil state, civility means that international recognition, it is a legal institution, and that's why it comes under a statutory body. It is created by an act of parliament. Now, that's what makes it different from all these other
private media.
Most recently, you're calling them media houses. But that's the difference. Because this one is a mandate of a government, and that's why when power is being changed, there is a role, a constitutional role to be played by this body. For example, public announcements in relation to government policy, government existences. Other countries have them. You've seen the Kenya has, I think, KTV, something like that. Kenya
KBC.
KBC. Tanzania, same thing. You go to South Africa. Even when you go to England, I think it's BBC. You go to the
and that was clear actually when they were crowning the prince. The protocol was it had to go through BBC, and then the rest of the world would pick it from BBC.
Now, to make the process away from us, Uganda here, we struggle with acceptance because of the divergent views of what people want vis-a-vis what is right to be done. Now, most recent, His Excellency came out with a directive, and he sought that all government institutions, in respect of their budgetary allocations towards media, media activities, media advertisings, media-related activities, must go through a government institution. Now, His Excellency, in his wisdom, realized this, that one, you don't have a right to question Mollen TV about not having informed Ugandans of government programs, because it will tell you this is a business-oriented program that probably will look out for what will bring money best. But you'll have a right to question why people didn't understand Operation Wealth Creation. That can be a question that can come up in the next probably budget allocation against UBC staff or heads. They have a right to ask you, what was your role in this? What was your role in electoral processes? Okay, what was your role in these? So because of the duty to be performed, it gives, and the need for accountability, there is need for support. And this is what His Excellency is saying. Most recent also, I think it was yesterday, where we saw the Permanent Secretary for Ministry of Finance coming out to re-echo the same thing. Now, survival of public-owned mainstream media must directly also impact socio-economic growth. And that should be the end chain of accountability for institutions like UBC, probably, I think New Vision, you know, that should be the end. Now, if you don't support them to create relevant content, they will not serve their purpose. And that has been a challenge for the same institutions we are discussing today. That, for example, if you want to talk about tourism, how is UBC and these other institutions relating with the board, probably with the ministry, to grow this? We have been struggling with penetration of domestic tourism. But the forefront runners should be these institutions. But do they have the support enough? Time and again, you've seen the heads of these institutions before Parliament trying to say, guys, we can't survive with the allocations we have. But that's not ironic, because it's not the only institution which is struggling with survival. All other institutions. You look at the debt burden of these institutions, which are actually, you know, when you have a debt, it's like a rope pulling you, even when you want to move. You can't make a step when you have backlog. So all this will help in clearing some of this, so we can have these institutions up and running. Secondly, I can tell you that you may want as a country to spend a lot of money on, I don't want to call it advertising a country or selling a country, but it is cheaper for you to invest in a national broadcaster for purposes of taking Uganda's products out there easily. For example, Uganda, the National Broadcasting Corporation, is watched by over 100 million people in Africa.
To add even the radio stations to
talk about the 11 radio stations. And now, so you may want to use that platform as a simple approach for you to sell whatever you want to sell. But if it has no support, you can't promise that. People have talked about the indiscrepancy in programming, indiscrepancy in content. As I've told you earlier, that it must match this socio-economic welfare. Our intention is not music welfare, entertainment welfare. Of course, it has its place, with due respect. All sports, all they have their places. But ours must be aligned with the national objectives.
Exactly.
Okay? The government in power has what we call a fostered mandate, which replicates itself through what we call a manifesto. Because it must be realized. And realization is part of civic education. The people must know. But who's going to do that? But there's a statutory body to do that. So I think in the spirit of pushing for socio-economic development, many a times you've seen the programs here of people who have gained from various government programs, which you may not find anywhere else. People are showing Korean movies the whole day. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's for them their niche, for their particular viewership. But there is someone who should cater for government fostering of its programs towards nation building, and that can only be a guarantee from the National Broadcasting Corporation. Okay? And that's why they have to be supported. Government gives an allocation, it is known, but sufficiently, if you want quality, you may want to go a bit higher in how you invest in it. And that's why, in the wisdom of the president, saying, let's give these people some extra money, indirectly from the. But because I can tell you, from the infrastructure that the national broadcaster owns, starting from the human resource in terms of equipment, in terms of space, which is underutilized. Underutilized. If you have a staff of over about 100 people, in terms of, they can do so many things, but if they are not getting enough, because of, there's a parallel appreciation of content, as I've told you, from the private institutions, because for them they are for profit. Where for us we don't run majorly. We may run there sometimes, but we don't run there on a daily. Because our intention, again, is constitutional, is statutory, and must be aligned with moving the country forward. So there is need for support, and this comes in timely. In fact, I don't know which better way to thank the Honorable Ramadan Ngobi. Probably he knows what happens here as a former behind the headliner. He has seen how the effort we put in to make sure that government programs come close to people, and majorly at a free cost. As I've told you, every day on Good Morning Uganda, earlier on I was telling you, Mollen, we focus on hosting people that can push agendas of government for national growth, but at what cost? At a free cost. But I can't tell you the same for other TV stations or other media or radios, because that's our mandate.
Yeah.
You get the point. It's our mandate to bring to closer, and I want to put this categorically in verbatim, that for relevant and critical criticism, we had last time we had a discussion here, and many times the president, His Excellency, the beacon of power in the country, picked from some of the discussions, and he quotes it many times if you've been keen to listen. You know, so that alone is a pushing factor. Many discussions you hold about doctor strikes. These are things that platforms, because the angles of reporting also matter. For people who have understood the media and the dynamics of the same, you'd want to prefer what we call credible and informative and true news, like they used to say, until the national broadcaster has run that news, we'll look at it as. So there's a mandate to
you also look at how, for example, I've seen a lot of stories that from Uganda are going internationally.
Absolutely.
You would see CNN, when they are quoting a story from Uganda, from media, they will actually make it a point. They are going to UBC. Yeah. You will see Al Jazeera doing the same. And I'll tell you, even here, there are programs that we have here on the national broadcaster that you won't find anywhere else. And I'll speak one, for example, the weather updates. We are the only media that do weather reporting on the news
who's not
in prime time.
Weather?
Do you know why we do that? Because we know that this is information that every Ugandan needs.
It's a mandate. It's a mandate for government to bring it closer to people.
Exactly. Yeah. And as we move forward on this, we are looking at the services that, you know, as a national broadcaster, as mainstream media that is supposed to inform and educate people, do provide. Maybe
people get lost in understanding that this is a free service and probably might not refocus on that. But just a little bit as we talk about the services that are offered and through promoting government or even bringing closer information from government to the people.
You see, one of the mandates of government, any serving government, even not uniquely looking at Uganda, is to pick information, assess information, react on the information, and report back. Many people have criticized our, I think it's at from 2 to around 4 and 5, where you see Parliament in session. But people never understand why it's UBC that is consistent on that. Why? The other duty, that you're not in Parliament, but we are taking you there.
Good to see that you see a member of Parliament.
It's important. Now, those are some of the evidences of what we are saying. You need to know, how many of you have, but you know you follow at the comfort of your. This is what we're saying, that we must turn information, content, into relevancy that will shift the nation. This is our true mandate, and of course, definitely, we serve to the latter in relating to the same. Now, when you want to look at information, now, information, the right to information is a constitutional right, which must be achieved through other mediums, or mediums for that matter. Now, UBC's mandate as a statutory body is to turn that right into being accessible and available. This is our argument we make when we are requesting for all these increasing, having these payments directed to and support. This is the argument that we are actionalizing a constitutional mandate. Okay, the only problem is that people want to look at right to information when they have been denied access of a document, when they have been blocked on their social medias. No, it is a wider, and the mandate of actionalizing that is a national body like the Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. Secondly, and probably as we conclude this, there's a need to prioritize this institution, and I can tell you that it is the only constant media body that will never go. For some of you who have lived long, I wish Kirabo was here. Those who are at the time of independence, post, first president, Mutesa, Lule, Yusuf Lule, there's a reason why it has survived generations, survived tyranny, survived all this, because it serves a unique mandate. Someone will tell you, TV, Radio Uganda, why? It has survived. But tell me, all these others, they'll go. In my time, I've seen many go, and they're still going. But the broadcaster's mandate is cast in law. That's why we must support it to actionalize. Actually, it's part of constitutionalism when you support the Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. So, for me, my cry is that now that the directive is out there, the president did mention, I love the fact that his Honorable Ramadan Ngobi, a colleague, did bring it to notice to the various comrades in the various ministries, various government bodies. Let's support the Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. It's our own, let's do, you see, that's what we were saying earlier. Let's do it with a quick, small fixing. These things we see, and excitement reporting, that excites, it doesn't live long. That's not news for us to pick up from. You may never see UBC reporting excitement stories, and there's nothing wrong in that. But you'll see it reporting content, driving information towards national growth. Now, it is upon you to represent and understand that and use it to turn your life around. But it is also incumbent on you to take it in bad faith. We have had many criticisms. I think you've seen many on social media about some of the programs run. But those people criticizing, you see, the irony of knowledge is that it is not common. I wonder even a person who said that common says it's common. That's the biggest deception in language.
Because you look at an example of some of the programs that we do run, than we're giving stories of people that have benefited from government programs.
Some people don't want
and this
to
is
see
for
that.
someone to pick and know the criteria on how they
I can
gained
give
that.
you an example, what we call prime time.
Mhm.
We have rush hours, morning time, evening time, and probably late night. What happens on your TV screen? Now, you can, that's why I think we are the only TV station that runs the Kiswahili bulletin.
Yeah.
But we are seeing that East Africa wants to move towards conglomerate appreciation of a language. But what are other people doing? So when you bring a Swahili bulletin, so all these things work towards, that's why I'm telling you that it is unique in its modus operandi, and it is not by default. It is purposed to be unique because it's a national broadcaster, and hence the support we need towards elevating its stature, which will help us actionalize the right to information, which is constitutional.
Absolutely, and very well put. As we conclude on this, we do argue to take this information. There is a lot of educative programs that do go through the national broadcaster, and like Felix did put it, these are intentional for every Ugandan, and to make sure that the public is constantly informed and getting the right information that does benefit every Ugandan. That is it for Good Morning Uganda Agenda. We'll be going in for more on sports highlights, and of course we still have more programming for you this morning. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. Have yourselves a nice day.